Hello, Marching 100 alumni. This is Brian Brazzi talking, and I'm with Phil Rowe. And Phil, instead of coming to IU next week for his 52nd consecutive Marching 100 alumni homecoming, is home instead in hospice. And Phil, it's so good to see you. First of all, I want you to assure your friends who are watching that you're comfortable and that you're doing all right.
Well, Brian, thank you for coming and giving us the opportunity to have this chat. I am doing fine. I am at home, and I'm not in any pain or uncomfortable. I am on hospice care for a variety of reasons. I've been fighting a pulmonary malfunction for several years, but they tell me that the medication I've been taking is no longer effective. So, as I say, I'm in hospice care, and they are taking good care of me.
Well, I just admire your grace and strength through all this, and I'm sure your friends do too, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to hear that at least there's some peace in your life. But I want to talk and get on the record your just amazing history with the Marching 100, starting as a performer yourself in 1956. What recollections do you have going back to your days in the band?
Well, Brian, it's an interesting story in that as a freshman in high school, we got a new band director. He was one semester out of IU, being the former drum major in the Marching 100. Came to my small town of Hagerstown, Indiana, to be his first assignment as a music teacher. We did lots of crazy, wild things during his 4 years that he spent with us there. We had a nice band. We formed a dance band. We had what we called a circus band, which was a show drill team type band. We had a little band called the Jug Band, which we blew air over bottles to play simple tunes. And we attended band day at Indiana. So by the time I graduated high school in 1956, I had been thoroughly dipped in Indiana University, and there was no place else to go. I'm a country boy, and I went to IU, quite honestly, to play in the band.
That's awesome.
If they can educate me on the way, more power to them. But I went to play in the band, and that I did.
Were you a music student?
No, I was not. I was enrolled in the business school, but spent most of my time, too much probably of my time, in the Department of Bands. We rehearsed 2 hours every day, 5 days a week, which I assume they're still doing. But a point of emphasis, you asked me how I got started, and as I say, I'm just a country boy. And Dr. Ronald Gregory, that was his first year there as well. And he and I got along very, very well. And I've told this story a number of times. As a freshman, you know, this is big city stuff for me. I knew nobody there, but I joined a family.
Yes.
Became a part of the family.
Yes. I understand
And
that.
stayed for 4 years, and the upperclassmen looked after us, helped us, and I was a part of something
Yeah.
from the get-go.
It really shows in how cohesive the band is throughout their lifetime. They stay family members throughout, and the fact that you would be celebrating your 52nd homecoming is, I think, more proof of that than anything. What about your first memories of your directors and some of the shows that you put on?
Well, as I say, Dr. Gregory and Harry Huxell, his assistant, were great men, were influential in my life back at that time. And as you and I have discussed a little bit, Dr. Gregory was a showman. He wanted to show off the Marching 100. And that first year was a whirlwind. and you have that information there. We went to several small towns in the Bloomington area, Martinsville, Vincennes, and participated in their fall festivals that they had. We attended, the itinerary, as you and I talked, was leave Bloomington Friday afternoon. We go to a major sized city and be housed in that city by parents of their local band and perform at their Friday night football game. On the next day to our college game, which was close by, and then 2 times during that first year, we were put up in very nice hotels in Chicago and Detroit, and we did the professional games on Sunday before returning to Bloomington.
That's amazing.
For someone who went to play in the band, I'm playing in the band.
That's amazing.
You ask about highlights. I can see clearly our first game was at Notre Dame, Indiana at Notre Dame. Their entrance to that field is by tunnel, which goes down low and then comes up to field level. I remember coming up out of that tunnel and seeing that field for the first time and the stands. And as I came up that tunnel, I thought, will they ever end? That was the biggest place I ever saw.
Wow.
And still impresses me to this day.
That's amazing. What an amazing experience to have.
Yes.
And that was freshman year. So going from Hagerstown to like the cradle of football must have been really interesting.
Unbelievable, yes.
So when you were in the band, you played exclusively your home games at the 10th Street Memorial Stadium?
That's correct, yes.
What do you remember about playing there?
Well, as you and I had chatted earlier, there was a special entrance the band used in that stadium. The closed end of the horseshoe was high ground, so we could go around the backside of the stadium and be hidden from the audience. From there, the drums came over the top, down a middle aisle, out onto the field, and we started our opening cadence. When we did that,
Right.
2 lines of over 100 band members came out, moved sideways, left and right, to the next outside aisles, and then came streaming down in 2 double rows. When they had entered the field, Gene Hazelfeld, all with a Shako drum major hat, probably about 6'7" or 8" by that time, came high stepping down that middle aisle, hitting a 5-yard marker with every step,
Oh, wow.
and off we went.
How about that?
Dr. Gregory took one look at that and said, no, 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 no. And we did not do it.
Oh, really?
He would not allow it. He had obviously visions of his band spilling all down those steps. But it was tradition.
Yeah.
And finally he relented. And so we did finish up the year making that special entrance, the
Wow.
only one of its kind that I'm aware of.
And I bet the Hoosier faithful ate it up.
They loved it. Unfortunately, back in the day, the band got as much of an ovation as the football team.
How about that? Well, that's similar. So, were you still in the band when we moved to the new stadium?
I was not. No. All of my performances were there in the old stadium. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you recall about your days in the Marching 100?
Well, it was good times. Like I say, it was good camaraderie. Again, I use the word family, and that's what they were to us. I came out of there with 3 other, there were 4 of us, very, very good friends for a lifetime.
Yeah.
A lifetime.
Yeah. That's definitely key, and that's one of the reasons we love this business is because we end up having lifetime relations based on our experiences at school, whether it's in a band or a team or something like that. That's wonderful. So you graduated in 1960. How did you stay engaged and connected to the university during the 60s, before the real formation of the Marching 100 Alumni Band?
Well, that was a turn from Kappa Kappa Psi, the National Band Honorary Fraternity. They made a decision, you know, back at that time. Well, let me make an insert if I might.
Sure.
You know, they had a national convention every 2 years, and they had one in Tallahassee, Florida. It so happened that at the time I was president of the chapter at IU. We went down there and were awarded the outstanding chapter in the country. The first time the award has ever been given. And so it belonged to Alpha Zeta chapter of Kappa Psi.
Okay.
And we're very proud of that fact.
That's wonderful.
You know, so Kappa Psi, the national office, I believe made a decision that they wanted to increase their numbers and obviously their bottom line. So they started a campaign in the early 60s to establish alumni chapters of the regular fraternities. So if that were completely successful, obviously they'd, you know, double their numbers.
Right.
So IU obviously was on the boards, and they started that campaign. And through the 1960s, a chapter was formed, officers elected, bylaws prepared. All of this towards a push to identify and bring back into the fold alumni members of the Marching Hundred. And out of that effort grew the Marching Hundred Alumni Band.
Oh, that's amazing. Were you at the center of kind of that leadership block for IU? Or?
Yes. It turns out that there were several alumni identified here in Indianapolis. So we started to get together. Once a month we would have a dinner together and tell a few stories and go. And another significant thing happened. Dr. Gregory left IU and Fred Ebbs came from Iowa to be the new director of bands. And along with him came an assistant director named Wilbur England.
Okay.
Wilbur had been an undergrad at Michigan. Michigan had an alumni band. And so Wilbur latched on to that idea and I think was very responsible, obviously, for guiding us. He got us documents from Michigan, bylaws, etc., and that became our model for us to build our band. And so Fred Ebbs and Wilbur England were right there with us, and there was a marriage between as many alumni band members as we could scour up,
Right.
and the new administration.
Did you find like the alumni records and being able to contact alumni band members to be a challenge, or was it right there for you?
Through the national office, we gained the membership rolls of the active members and then followed up with that to contact them during that period of time and invite them to our various gatherings to put this group together.
Oh, that's
And
great.
it worked.
So how much lead time before Homecoming 1970 and your beginning of putting this idea together did it take to?
I think when you look at some of the records that I have given you, you will find out scattered from the early 60s
Okay.
and continual building in that direction through that period of time up until the first performance being Homecoming 1970.
Wow, it really stuck. Why do you think that the alumni band has had such staying power for 52 years now?
Well, I've given that some thought, and Brian, we're talking old people here. I was probably one of the youngest, and as you know, I'm out of there in 1960, so these are my early years for me. But we're getting music teachers from IU, you know, have been out 4 or 5 years and wanted an opportunity to come back to their university and be a part of this.
Right.
And so, and we got no girls at that time, all guys, and I can say they're an older group. And so they came back, they put money into the project. we had to buy our own postage and things. We were not part of the Alumni Association at that time. We were strictly on our own.
Right.
And so it just became a group of guys that were really excited about being able to come back to their school and put this thing together.
Yeah, that's amazing. We right now the registration for the 2021 homecoming closes today, Phil. There's 182 people registered. Do you remember how many came back in 1970?
Brian, I do not, but it was right at 100. I think it was a little under 100, actually.
That's pretty
But
great.
like 70 or 80 guys
That's
came back.
amazing.
We wore paper hats and ate Kentucky Fried Chicken out of the boxes that we ordered down there for our lunch that day, and had a great time. Herman Wells, as we mentioned before, was a member of our association by his own right,
Right.
as a baritone player. Came over and visited with us, encouraged us.
Yeah, that's amazing. You get Herman's endorsement. You're off to
Yeah,
a great start.
we made him an honorary member, which he really didn't need. Like I say, he had earned his right to be there on his own, but he was great support for us.
Well, that's
you know.
fantastic. Well, I
Yeah.
guess it's important to point out that you're a percussionist,
I am.
and I heard told that you played the same drum for 50 years in the alumni band.
Before you go, let me give you something that I wrote down
Okay.
for it, pertaining to that very thing. You can see what you think of it and do with it what you will. But yes.
What would you want the people watching this to know about that drum?
Well, it was the drum assigned to me in 1956.
Wow.
And then by the time I got back there in 1970, it had been moved down and given to the alumni band because the marching unit had new ones and replaced it. So I latched onto it and used it for probably 2 or 3 years. But there were 8 of those. You know, it's a 10-man rank. There were 8 drums, 2 bass drums. That was the drum line. When I went back for the alumni band, the drums were disappearing. It got down to 1.
Oh, wow.
So I went to Ray Kramer and I said, Ray, I'm going to do my best to be here every year. Can I take this drum home with me so I'll bring it back? He said, take it.
Wow.
And it's been with me ever since.
And then you, as you got older, you had to adapt how you used it. Tell us about the kind of what you put together to keep playing.
Well, I wore it like the St. Bernard. I had a chest harness and carried it up high. But then as I got a little older, that became a heavier drum than what I had recalled. And so I bought a 3-wheeled baby stroller
Yeah.
and adapted that so that I could push the drum.
Right.
And that's the way it wound up with me pushing it and enabled me to stay on a few more years,
That's amazing.
you know.
Well, what do you think about like today's band and today's drum lines? Aren't they just dynamic and the sound is just amazing?
Brian, I'm amazed, absolutely amazed. You know, they are such talented young people and they do such a great job and work hard. You know, people don't understand. They put in lots of hours to be able to come out on that field for 7-8 minutes and put that show on.
Right.
They do a tremendous job,
Right.
you know. But that has always been a great band, recognized across the country in the band. And I was going to tell you just a short story. This will mean something to drummers, okay?
Yeah.
In, I think it was 1957, a man by the name of William F. Ludwig, who brand name is WFL, owns the Ludwig Drum Company in Elkhart, Indiana.
Right.
He came to Indiana with a request. He had developed a new product and he wanted us to test it. And to my knowledge, we were the first ones, and my little red drum was one of them,
Oh, wow.
to get plastic drum heads.
Oh,
Before that, they'd always been animal skin, calf skin,
right,
which the weather affected tremendously.
right.
Cold, hot, damp, whatever. And he, excuse me,
That's all right.
but he brought those there to test, and history will show what a success that really.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Will show what a success that was, but we were proud of the fact that he had selected our band to be his test on the
Yeah,
thing.
that is interesting to know. Is there any other, talking about homecoming now, an actual event, any special years or instances of that are particular in your recall that you always think fondly about?
Not a specific year, Brian, but you had asked me earlier kind of what stood out, and I got to thinking about that. And when we started, we knew that we had a problem, and our problem was, again, as I mentioned before, we've got all guys and old guys in there, so our growth was really minimal in those first years. We just needed more people. Well, we knew where the answer was, and the answer was the bandsman that graduates this year has got to come to us next year.
Right.
Because when his buddies that are still in the band come back and see him having a good time
Right.
with us, then they will join.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. And as that movement began to grow, it was self-perpetuating.
Right.
The more that came in, the more contact was made the next year, the more that came in. The second jump was to the ladies. When the ladies came, we went through the same thing. You know, as they came back, met with their friends at homecoming,
Right.
enjoyed that immensely. They were dying to get back the next year.
Right.
And so, as those two things occurred, we started to grow and we became solid.
Right.
I was thinking about telling you in 50 years, Brian, you wouldn't believe how many boy girls became man wife,
Yes.
how many more girls man wife became parents. I have seen parents glowing at their children becoming members of the Marching Hundred,
Wow.
and some of them into the alumni band.
Wow, that's interesting. Legacy band.
As far as I'm concerned, band will always be there. It's a part of the institution. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue. That's a high number, 180.
Yeah.
It's going to continue because when you get down there, all you got to do is look around and see what's going on, and you'll know this is good.
Yeah.
This is going to be here.
Well, your spirit just comes right into me, Phil. I feel it, and I know.
I get a little emotional. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Well, I have appreciated talking to you today. I know there's so much more, and I know that Dr. Smedley in particular is very appreciative of your the alumni records and archive materials that you shared. Those will be stored in a safe place and an accessible place in Kramer 100 Hall. So I really just appreciate your time today, and I just want you to know that we love you and we're all thinking about you and wish you all the best, and we'll certainly miss you this homecoming, but we'll be thinking about you.
Thank you.
Best wishes to you.